I'm curious about your journey. What originally sparked your interest in venture capital and what led you to launch Numinous Capital?
If I were to take us through the whole journey, that would be lots of rambling and would take a lot of time. But the long and the short of it was that I was always sort of thinking like an entrepreneur. We had a bakery bread business that the excitement and speed of capital allocation and investing in entrepreneurs, which I'm absolutely, and I've done angel investing for as long as I've been allowed to, because,
Can you talk about search for that extraordinary
yeah.
as your core motivation?
So a few things come to mind. One thing that I'll say is I think investors typically get really excited about AI is such a big buzzword these days. And in venture, I see hundreds of.
What do you think boards need to understand about securing private equity or venture investment in today's market?
Yeah. So, I work on the early stages mostly, and that's really where.
So you've worked across a broad range of industries, everything from crypto, industrial tech, biotech, and much more. How do you assess risk and opportunity across such diverse sector?
Yeah. So each sector sort of has its own risk profile. Investing is.
Welcome to another episode of Boardsi Leadership Talks. I'm your host, Martin Rowinski, CEO of Boardsi. And on this show, we bring together visionary leaders, boardroom strategists, and executive decision makers to explore the forces shaping leadership at the highest levels. Today's guest is someone who embodies exactly that, leadership at the intersection of capital, innovation, and impact. Joining us is Emily Dinu, founder and general partner at Numinous Capital, a firm unlocking high-potential opportunities in deep tech, biotech, infrastructure, and industrial innovation. Emily brings years of experience in venture capital, private equity, and fund operations, advising and investing across every phase of pre-seed to Series A, with past leadership roles at VU Venture Partners, Bread and Butter Ventures, and Muco Machinery. Emily has built an impressive track record supporting startups and scaling organizations. But what truly sets her apart is her vision, a deep curiosity for companies that redefine what's possible, and a mission to back the founders building them. Emily, welcome to our show.
Well, Martin, thank you. I don't know that I could ever top that type of intro. I'm gonna have to have you do my intros from here on out. So thank you so much. And thank you for
Absolutely.
having me on. Nice
Yeah,
to be here.
it's a pleasure having you, and I'm super excited to hear everything I have lined up for you. And I'm going to start off with I'm curious about your journey. What originally sparked your interest in venture capital and what led you to launch Numinous Capital?
So if I were to take us through the whole journey, that would be lots of rambling and would take a lot of time. But the long and the short of it was that I was sort of pushed into entrepreneurship as a young girl. Being raised by a single mother, we had side businesses to make ends meet. So I was always sort of thinking like an entrepreneur. We had a bakery bread business that we operated out of our garage, highly illegal. I don't recommend anyone do that, but made ends meet, like I said. We had a cleaning business, and she was also a photographer, so I helped out on the business side there. Yeah. And my mother was the visionary, and I was more of the operator. So I was always the one to sort of handle the finances and the day-to-day operations of the companies, as small or big as they were. So that's how I sort of got my start. And then I graduated high school early and got a corporate apprenticeship. Realized very quickly that corporate would probably not be a good place for me. Started reading books and books and books on innovation and how to think like a leader and think like C-suites. Decided to ramp up my own business at about age 19, working directly with leaders of startups and um, you know, just small businesses to start. That led into larger businesses, more strategic roles in said businesses. if I could talk, it would be so much more believable. Um, and eventually worked one-on-one with fund managers of hedge funds, commercial real estate, private equity, venture, so on, derivatives. So I've done a little bit of everything outside of those formal roles that you mentioned earlier. And that's where I sort of got the bug bit me, the finance bug bit me there. And I find venture to be sort of a marriage of both the excitement and speed of capital allocation and investing in entrepreneurs, which I'm absolutely just so passionate about investing in the right people and in the right companies. So that's sort of the long and the short of it. That's how I'm here right now. And having worked in operations for so long, and I've done angel investing for as long as I've been allowed to, because there are laws sort of telling us what we can and can't do in the investment space. But anyway, being on the back end of operations and dealing one on one with LPs and investors, I've caught on to some errors within the industry that I'm here to correct. And that's what Numinous is all about. So I'll pause there and let you talk on your own show for a little bit.
Awesome. We're all here to listen to you, but I'll spark another conversation. You talk about search for that extraordinary
Yeah.
as your core motivation. How does that philosophy shape how you invest and lead today?
Yeah, absolutely. So a few things come to mind. Um, One thing that I'll say is I think investors typically get really excited about ideas. Um, and we don't get excited enough about the execution and who's executing. So that's sort of where I ground myself. When I look for the extraordinary, I look for people that are breaking patterns and companies that are truly innovating. So I'll give you an example. AI is such a big buzzword these days. And in venture, I see hundreds of AI companies per week. And really, what they are AI wrappers built on existing models. To me, that's not defensible. That's not an extraordinary company. An extraordinary company really changes the world. It collapses reality and changes the way that we live and work on a daily basis. So that again, a really broad speaking in broad strokes, what I look for. And then industry-wise, I think that aligns with the extraordinary because what I'm looking at are more infrastructural plays that are needs not wants for now and in the future. And when you touch markets like that, it's really hard not to be in awe when you find a founder who's able to break the barriers of mass adoption in those areas. Um, so that's a little bit sector-wise and philosophy-wise. Founder-wise, we could get into so many various archetypes, archetypes, or however you say the word, that I look for personality-wise and behavioral-wise, background-wise, and everything like that. I totally like people that have been through something. I like founders that are a little bit older. Um, More experienced in their sector and are building something really more out of a need rather than a want to be a founder. So they've been in an industry and have identified, um, you know, critical errors or opportunities to exploit and build from there. I like people that can hold vision and tactical strategies in one place. And yeah, I could go on and on, but the extraordinary is really, it's mostly common sense. But when you meet someone building something really cool, it hits you and you feel it first, and then you validate from there with data.
That's awesome. And for the executives and even more importantly, founders that are listening, many of who are building or scaling companies, what do you think boards need to understand about securing private equity or venture investment in today's market?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I work on the early stages mostly, and that's really where my focus lies. So growth plus, that's a different conversation. And what I'll say about boards on the early stage is I think that advisory boards are super helpful for founders at the early stage. And what you are looking for are people that fill in gaps in your own skill sets, that may have really deep expertise in your industry, and sometimes that have strategic relationships that would be beneficial to your company. And then from there, the more formal boards with fiduciary responsibilities, I think those are more necessary once you hit a price round or if you have an LP that requires that. Um, Again, working in operations for so long and in this industry for so long, people join startup boards for the wrong reasons. They join them for bullets on their resumes, for LinkedIn brags and everything like that. So I would encourage um, people seeking out board positions with pre-public companies. If you really don't add value, maybe sit that one out. It's going to look bad on you at the end of the day if the company fails. It really doesn't mean too much if you're part of a board that is not successful. Um, and for founders, I would warn uh, them to be aware that people are sort of looking for those opportunities to bolster their own expertise and really use an advisory board to feel out who should potentially be on the more committed board later on. And if they're not adding value, feel comfortable enough with maybe letting them leave and replacing them with someone else. Um, yeah, just things to be aware of on both ends for sure.
I love it. I love what you said because I actually, obviously, Board's Eyes in the space of helping companies find board members and advisors.
Right.
And I was asked the same question, and I used the same analogy. I said, sometimes it's better to build an advisory board and use that as your fishing pond to
Yep.
then elevate the ones that should be on your actual board. So
Absolutely. Yeah,
that's a
we're in
great point.
alignment there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good to hear that the board expert agrees with me.
Yeah, we're in alignment. That's a good
Yeah.
thing. So you've worked across a broad range of industries, everything from crypto, industrial tech, biotech, and much more. How do you assess risk and opportunity across such diverse sectors?
Yeah. Yeah, so each sector sort of has its own risk profile. Investing is risky in and of itself. Assessing risk is sort of it's nuanced because you're looking at market risk, regulatory, macro, micro kind of stuff, right? You're looking ahead and in the now for those things. You're assessing founder um, competency and really like ability to emotionally regulate in hard and messy situations because that's going to happen in early stage companies no matter what. The ability to maybe not pivot, but respond to market feedback very quickly. And then from there, there's tons and tons and tons of theoretical financial analysis. And I say it's theoretical because there is no way to tell how a company may perform in the future. But there are ways of assessing the market and potential value at exit through waterfall and returns analyses, which is really just spreadsheet work. Once you learn it, it's super easy. And I would urge founders to get really good at that. Work on their ability to sort of think like an investor and think exit backwards. And then for people that are wanting to be on boards and advise these super risky pre-public companies, it's all information to sort of hold under your belt. But there's no way to escape the risk of early stage venture investing and company building. Um, Execution means everything. And of course, there are so many unknowns in the environment and again, regulatory space. But I think it's really more responding and maybe using risks and things that don't work as catalysts for additional innovation within the companies.
Love it. What are some emerging trends in venture and private markets that boards and founders should be watching closely in 2025 and beyond, I guess you can say?
Yeah, absolutely. So Numinous focuses specifically on US companies. That's a big part of my mission. not to veer off the path too much, but looking to invest in companies that create actual jobs and purpose and things that take sort of a village to build. That means a lot to me, both economically um, and um, spiritually. Almost, it's sort of my why. At the end of the day, I feel like in the U.S., I think we're so bored and we sort of occupy ourselves with things that are not productive. I really do. So I'm personally really excited about reshoring, nearshoring, things like that. So I think that there are two hats you can put on. You can be scared for the future or excited for the future. In the US, we're going to focus on more US innovation. So think about things like, and I took some notes. So material science is going to be huge. Localized are sort of revamping legacy markets and things like that. Um, Energy innovation, that's a huge one. Really into
Yeah.
nuclear right now. It's risky, it's scary, um, but a lot of that is more narrative than it is science. When you get down to the actual science and execution of nuclear energy and how beneficial that would be to our economy specifically, especially with AI and how much energy that uses, super important. Things like these. So I would love for people to get more excited about, again, infrastructure, things that we need, things that are going to make our lives so much better. Biotech is huge. Um, Making sure that we in America are strong as a country alone. You know, we have the talent, the education, the resources, and we need to put our heads um, more, thinking more toward um, I don't know, just innovation, innovating, thinking of new ways to make lives better here, I think. And you could get really creative with that. Of course, I think specifically in industrials. I'm not really thinking about software at all. Um, but I would urge people to get really excited about those things. Um, Software investing and interest in software, I think in the age of AI, it's way less valuable. It just is. Software does not take teams and teams and teams to develop anymore. And I'll say that just from having experience in investing in software and being married to a software engineer that has been a software engineer for 17 years. You wouldn't believe the things that he has to say about the industry and actually like how nervous he is for not only himself but the teams that he leads right now. Within the next year or two. So focusing on things that are real, solid, those are what people should get excited about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Been a game changer. So
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
absolutely. Yeah.
Now let's talk about leadership. From a leadership standpoint, what's been one of your most defining moments or toughest lessons in building teams or even making investment decisions?
Yeah. That's kind of one of those things that if I wanted to sound really fancy, I could spit some game right now. But at the end of the day, it kind of goes both ways. Investor or not, leadership or not, you have to understand that you're dealing with people. People are flawed, people are nuanced. And the more you understand people, the better you'll understand how to lead and also to invest correctly. So I'll leave that there. As far as my mistakes that I've made in the past or things that, maybe I wish I'd been a little bit more mature around in leadership or investing. It's really more trusting my gut and being less swayed by the sentiments of people that may benefit from yeah, you taking their advice, right? There's so many experts out there. Um, but really, if you're doing leadership right, you're deep in those companies, and you're building those relationships with employees or founders and founding teams. You should know them better than anyone else. You should know those companies better than anyone else.
Absolutely. Time for some advice. What advice would you give to first time founders or executives trying to position themselves to attract investors or strategic advisors?
Yeah. You know, one of my big things right now is I think poise has been funded and praised for a really long time. But we're sort of at this crossroads where we can either choose to focus on looking and sounding polished or actually being really good. When people look under the hood, we have to have qualities and have built companies and have built ourselves enough to add value to whatever industries or teams that we're wanting to contribute to. My best advice for anyone wanting to raise money or be a part of boards of pre-public companies is focus on substance more than anything else. I think I have this feeling that the cosplaying of professionalism is going to go out of style really quickly here soon. Because truly, if you close your eyes and really listen to most people speak when they're giving advice or when they're talking about companies or really just anything these days, they're not saying much of anything, right? Because they've coached themselves to sound good. They're sort of regurgitating ideas. So again, twofold advice. People that are funding and also looking to contribute to companies, focus more on the substance rather than the delivery. And I want to say one other thing about that. And then, well, I totally forgot my point because I got excited about that point. So I want to just quickly talk a little bit more about delivery and what it means to look and feel professional. A big part of my mission is to invest in the smartest people in the world. The smartest people in the world may not have the best pitches. They may not look like everyone else or act like everyone else, and that's a good thing. That's how they break down barriers. They don't act or think or speak the same. They are completely different, and that's okay. So don't expect or force them into boxes. That I'm so big on that. I really want to see smart people build really good things, and I want to see less people that look good in front of cameras and at speaking events and at pitches get funded just because they look cool and sound cool.
That's awesome. And if there's one thing you could change
Yeah.
about how leadership and capital intersect today, what would it be? It's my last question for you.
So many things. So it goes back to substance again. I think I would change investing off of optics and fake paper returns. That needs to go out the window. So investors sort of have a skilled way of looking more successful than they are because what they'll do is quantify the potential value of a company versus the actual value of an exit and sort of say, yeah, we're this successful. And then from there, they get to raise rounds. Everyone should be aware of this. LPs need to be aware of it. Um, I just wish it were less a career and more of a lifestyle to be a venture investor and a capital allocator. I wish people were in it for the right reasons. I wish people weren't in it for the power or the optics of power. I wish people were really in it to fund brilliant folks building amazing companies. Um, and I could totally get on my soapbox more, but that's the main message, I think.
I love it. So before I do my farewell, how do founders, executives, anybody looking for advice, how do they find you?
Yeah. So I try to be super responsive on all channels. I'll say my LinkedIn messages get a little crazy. On my website, numinouscap.com, we have a startup pitch form, and I also have an email address. I respond to everything unless it's spammy. So if it's a genuine sort of pitch or someone seeking advice from me, absolutely, you'll get a response. If you're trying to sell me something, probably not. Uh, so yeah, email, startup form, or LinkedIn, you can try.
Awesome. Well, Emily, thank you so much for joining us today. Your perspective on investment strategy, market evaluation, and your visionary leadership was incredible and it was insightful. And I know our listeners will walk away with real value. To our
Wow.
audience, if you're an executive looking to position your company for investment, growth, or board level leadership, be sure to follow us on Boardsi Leadership Talks for more high impact conversations. And don't forget to connect with Emily Dinu and learn more about her work at Numinous Capital. And until next time, keep leading boldly and building with purpose. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you for tuning in to Leadership Talks. Don't forget to subscribe for more insightful conversations with industry leaders. Your support means a lot to us.